Life and faith, the two are intimately connected. For more than 2 decades, Life and Faith Television has painted pictures and told stories of faith journeys here in southwestern Ontario. Join us now as we continue the tradition. We explore the diversity in our lives of faith and the faith of our lives.
Good morning. Good to see you again. And if you're a new viewer to Life and Faith, we extend to you a very warm welcome. On this morning's show, Faisal Joseph takes us to Huron College to hear the Orr Lecture. Then we journey back to Pierce Williams Christian Center with Matthew Penny for an update and some news about a very ambitious venture. Lastly, Reverend Keith Nethery speaks with the Archdeacon of Congregational Development for the Diocese of Huron, the Venerable Perry Chipka. Dr. Ingrid Mattson, the first Chair of Islamic Studies at Huron College, recently presented the Orr Lecture, an Islamic response to pathologic altruism. Life and Faith brings you some coverage of this, as well as a discussion between Dr. Mattson, Reverend Dr. Bill Danaher, the Dean of Theology at Huron College, and Faisal Joseph from Life and Faith.
Reverend Danaher and Dr. Mattson, welcome to Life and Faith. We're honored to have you here today for our viewers. Reverend Danaher, I want to start with this fabulous lecture at Huron College this evening, the Orr Lecture. Can you tell us how it came about? And secondly, how is it that we ended up hearing from the new Chair of Islamic Studies on the topic that we're going to discuss this evening?
Well, the Orr Lecture started about over 20 years ago, and historically has brought in a major religious thinker or theologian to speak about matters that are affecting the church and the world today. We've had some remarkable people in the past, and over the past few years we've been focusing on broadening the appeal of the lecture and also the people who would give the lecture. So given that Huron University College is establishing this incredible chair in Islamic Studies, we thought it would be a fitting opportunity to showcase the work of Ingrid Mattson, the first recipient of this chair.
Welcome, Dr. Mattson. We're delighted to have you on Life and Faith. Can you tell us what your topic was, and we'll have a little bit of discussion about it.
Sure. My lecture was on pathological altruism and the Islamic response to that. Now, this is a bit of a difficult term and probably unfamiliar to most people. I think most people know what altruism is, where a person makes an act of self-sacrifice for the interests of another, for the good or welfare of others. The term pathological altruism is applied to those acts of altruism that lead to harm being committed, either harm to the person who is making the altruistic gesture, and a harm that really does not bring benefit to the recipient of the gesture.
And I don't want this dialogue to be in the abstract, because you gave some wonderful examples. One, which touched a lot of members of the audience, was with the good intentions of when you were in a refugee camp in Afghanistan and you were dealing with trying to provide shoes for children. Can you share with our viewers?
Right. So in this case, we had, I was working in a refugee camp, and a donor wanted to give an in-kind donations precisely so that she could avoid the kind of problem that comes when you give cash sometimes, you know, corruption, the money getting into the wrong hands. And the children were, you know, were walking around the camp barefoot. It was leading to, you know, injuries and certainly some painful episodes for them. So we saw that there was a need for shoes, and we decided this would be, you know, a nice item to distribute that would be immediately beneficial. But what happened when we went to the area to distribute the shoes is that as soon as the news got out that we were distributing shoes, well, kids came from all over the place. And what ended up happening is that while some got shoes, many more did not. And as we drove away, you know, leaving these children behind, a number of them who were shoeless running behind us in their bare feet, realizing that now we had created, in fact,
harm for the others.
A harm for the others, a situation of relative deprivation that hadn't existed before. And so, you know, having learned, I was much younger then, having learned more about ethical principles, I know that we should have brought in a number of principles, of course, evaluating the situation, but the one that I identified in particular is the principle that it is better to avoid a harm than to do a good. So that rather than just jumping spontaneously and emotively into a situation to try to, you know, help, we need to first evaluate and make sure that our help is not creating harm.
You also, in your talk at the Orr Lecture today, talked about fanaticism, and you talked about extremism and fanaticism, not only in the Muslim community, but in many other religious faiths and community. And you challenged all of us to think of it in a different way. And I loved when you had the approach of talking about Islam in a pre-modern world versus in the media world of Fox News Network, etc.
Well, I think one of the most important things is the focus when we look at traditional teachings, pre-modern teachings, the focus is on faith and the relationship with God and the relationship with people through good practices, good values, good character. What shifts in the modern period is a focus on identity politics, and whether it is as various segments in a you know, multi-identity community, or it's dichotomies like Islam and the West. And so the idea of, you know, Muslim identity or Christian identity or Hindu identity starts to be spoken about and prioritized. When we look at the pre-modern traditions, we don't see them talking about identities as the be-all and end-all. We see that character formation, good behavior, good values are the focus. And so I think it's really important that we don't let the situation, the political situation, and the characterizations that others impose upon us make us become people who are more interested in this kind of, you know, group identity and cohesion than our faith and our actions.
Now, does that mean for people that are proud of their religious identity that they're supposed to suppress that? Or, I mean, that's not the message that I get from you, but there is a real danger with that being the end-all be-all.
Right. No, absolutely not. And we are, you know, we're social beings. We're created in communities. We have, I like to talk about different religious communities like families. I have my nuclear family, I have extended family, I have distant cousins. I have my home faith community, my kind of nuclear faith community, but I also belong to a family of faith communities. And so that sense of expansiveness, of expansive circles of belonging, I think can really help us prevent this kind of dichotomous relationship. But it's very important, and the reason why I brought this into the talk is that there's this paradox of people, and we all know them, people who are very kind and generous to those in their group, but are terribly hateful to those outside. You know, you can think of the, you know, the nice old aunt who's the sweetest person, but then makes terribly racist statements, or the generous benefactor in the community who also donates to some, you know, political cause that hurts people. You know, why is this? How can someone be on the one hand so compassionate towards the insiders in their group, and on the other hand so vicious to people outside? And it's so the relationship that we need, that we're exploring here through pathological altruism is that nexus of compassion but dichotomous identities. And so we really need to consider how we talk about our faith community, so that we don't set up these, you know, us and them paradigms that can be deadly.
Well, I can't thank both of you enough. This has been very informative, and you've obviously given us a sort of a little paradigm shift in the way that we think about not only the work that we do in our actions, but just as importantly what our intentions are when we do it. And we thank you very much.
Thank you. Nice speaking with you.